Welcome back to DS Trucks. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about using your four-wheel drive high and how fast can you drive your truck in four-wheel drive high. Now, this is a controversial topic. I've always been under the impression that you can drive your truck in four-wheel drive high at any speed. I was not aware that there was any kind of speed limit on driving your truck in four-wheel drive high, but someone did bring it up, and it's been one of those things that's been kind of controversial. I've always driven at high rates of speed in four-wheel drive, no problem, but there has been other truck owners who are very shy about using the system. They won't use four-wheel drive on highway speeds. A lot of people won't engage the four-wheel drive system until they're stuck. They'll get unstuck and then turn it back off. Me, whenever the roads are slippery, if there's an inch of snow, I'm in four-wheel drive. Now, could I get away with not being in four-wheel drive? Probably, but I don't want to be spinning everywhere. I don't want to be fishtailing everywhere. I turn on the four-wheel drive. If there's an inch, if there's a half an inch, whatever, I'm in four-wheel drive. But there's other people who say you shouldn't use your four-wheel drive until it's really bad, or even turn your four-wheel drive off. I've seen that you shouldn't, I've heard people say you shouldn't drive over 55 miles an hour with your four-wheel drive. And now that I think about it, guys, I really don't know the answer to the question. I do know that I have driven over 55 miles an hour all the time with four-wheel drive, but I'm actually going to refer to the owner's manual and see if there's anything in it that says that you cannot drive over 55 miles an hour. Let's go into the shop where it's warm and take a look at this owner's manual. Alright, so here's the manual for my 2019 Super Duty. Let's crack this thing open to page 212, where they talk about 4x4. Where they talk about 4x4. Now, I don't necessarily follow the manual to a T when it comes to 4x4, but I do appreciate the literature. So in here, I've been kind of flicking through this book already, looking for the speed limit, and I haven't found it anywhere. So nowhere does it say to stop at 55 miles an hour. It doesn't have any recommendations as far as that. It does say to limit your speed to a safe speed for conditions. So in snowy situations, don't go too fast, because it talks about the vehicle being able to accelerate quicker than other vehicles, but it says that with the four-wheel drive system, it doesn't provide extra braking, and it says that you can become overconfident from driving with the four-wheel drive, that sometimes that overconfidence can result in an accident because you're going quicker. So yeah, so there are some speed warnings here. It says if four-wheel drive low is selected with the vehicle moving over 3 miles an hour, the system will not perform a shift. I do know that. I do know you have to be in neutral to shift into four-wheel drive. Low, you do not need to be in neutral to shift into four-wheel drive. High, with eSoft, you can shift at higher rates of speed. Now, I will say this about the eSoft system. The way I drive my trucks, I do not shift in and out of four-wheel drive, particularly shifting in though. I don't really shift in four-wheel drive above 55 miles an hour, above even, I mean, I'll do it at 30 if I have to, but typically I'm slowing down to like 10, 15 miles an hour and doing it under a coast, doing the shift under a coast, even into four-wheel drive high. I've had a lot of these trucks, guys. I've had them. I've read the manuals on these plenty of times. I want to know the most I can get out of the system, and I do know that they say you can shift in and out. In the past, they used to say that you can shift in and out up to like 55. Now I think it just says you can do it while moving. I think they even lifted that 55 limit out of shifting into four-wheel drive high. But me personally, I've found that shifting into four-wheel drive high at higher speeds tends to bring that ratcheting noise about, and it tends to not perform the shift and makes you stop and then move forward. It kind of knows when it didn't engage right, and it does this whole thing and makes you, it's a mess. So for me, I've had a lot of success by not shifting in and out at these higher speeds or even at highway speeds, but they do say you can shift at any speed. I would be very wary of shifting at like a really high speed, like 80 miles an hour. I would not do that. So right here it says 4x4 high. It says used for extra traction as in snow or icy roads or in off-road situations. This mode is not intended for use on dry pavement. So a little bit of a side note there, using your four-wheel drive on dry pavement is obviously not recommended, but I have many a times used my four-wheel drive in rain, in heavy rain, highway use, heavy rain. I'm in four-wheel drive high, and I've gotten a lot of blowback from doing that, because people say it's not slippery enough to use four-wheel drive high if it's just raining. So and kind of looking at the manual and stuff and trying to decipher what its meanings are, they're very clear that the situation to not use four-wheel drive is dry pavement. So I guess by definition, rain would be okay, but at the same time, when you look closer at the literature, they're very specific in saying that it's dry pavement that the system is not to be used in multiple locations. That it's stated to not use the four-wheel drive system in dry. But when you look over here, it says basic operation, and it talks about the different conditions, which would be sand, mud, and water. And when they're talking about water, they're talking about like high water, like deep water, like going through a deep puddle that's maybe 4 or 5 inches deep, 6 inches deep, going through something like that slowly and coming out the other end would be an appropriate time for four-wheel drive. So they don't talk specifically about rain and driving in four-wheel drive in the rain, but they do say don't drive on dry pavement specifically. So that's going to be controversial. I personally will use four-wheel drive. It's not, in my opinion, it's not needed for like low speeds around town driving, but when you're driving on the highway and it's slippery, I think it's pretty slippery actually on the highway at highway speeds. I think it's pretty, my opinion, from my experience, like if you tried to slam your brakes, you'd slide. Could be as much as if it were snow, like really wet, oily ground. To me, would be slippery, would be considered slippery ground. But that's one of those controversial things that the manual doesn't say specifically rain is enough, but it does say it doesn't want it to be dry pavement, and I wouldn't consider rain dry pavement. So a little controversy. So as far as the speed limit is concerned, there's nothing in here that states a specific speed limit for four-wheel drive high, like a 55 mile an hour. They do talk about some speed limits here when it comes to the electronic locking differential, and it's interesting. I wanted to point out this one part. It says the electronic locking differential may not engage if you press the accelerator pedal during an engagement. A message will display in the instrument display guiding you to release the accelerator pedal. So you're really stepping on it there. You're just putting it in, locking the rear and putting it to the floor. It says in 4x2 or 4x4 modes, the electronic locking differential will automatically disengage above 25 miles an hour and automatically re-engage at speeds below 20 miles an hour. In four-wheel drive low, the electronic locking differential will automatically disengage at speeds above 62 miles an hour and will automatically re-engage at speeds below 56 miles an hour. So I was not aware that you could drive the truck in four-wheel drive low above 62 miles an hour. I didn't know that you could do that. But according to this, I mean, it's saying that if you go over 62 in four-wheel drive low, that it will disengage the locking diff if you've engaged it. So that's interesting. I had no idea that. I didn't know. So a couple things that's interesting too on a side note is if you're under power, then the locking diff might not actually engage, which is an interesting point, because I've always been under the impression that the limited slip was a better system than just the locking diff, because it grabs the rear at speed. So if you're driving in the snow and one wheel breaks loose, then the limited slip will grab the other wheel and you don't even have to think about it. But it kind of states here that when you're under power and then one wheel spins, you can't lock it. You have to stop that other wheel. You have to stop everything from moving, put in the locker, and then move. So that's why I've kind of always felt like the limited slip is just superior to the electronic locking, because even if the computer could lock it for you, it can't, because it needs everything to stop before it will actually lock. So I'm more on the team limited slip than I am team electronic locking, although electronic locking is better than nothing. So that is that. But yeah, so looking at this manual, I've looked in both locations, on page 212, and then there's another page, I believe it's 379, where it's the tire section, and they're also talking about driving at speeds and the wheels and tires. Okay, four-wheel drive. The four-wheel drive system. Do not become overconfident in the ability of the four-wheel drive vehicle. Although a four-wheel drive vehicle may accelerate better than a two-wheel drive vehicle in low traction situation, it won't stop any faster than a two-wheel drive vehicle. Always drive at a safe speed. No limits though. No actual set in stone speed limit. Back to the book. A vehicle equipped with four-wheel drive, when selected, has the ability to use all four wheels to power itself. This increases the traction, which may enable you to safely drive over terrain and road conditions that a conventional two-wheel drive vehicle cannot. Power is supplied to all four wheels through the transfer case or power transfer unit. Four-wheel drive vehicles allow you to select different modes as necessary. For information on transfer case operation and shifting procedures, see the four-wheel drive on page 212, which is where we actually started. For more information on the transfer case, see page 328. You should become thoroughly familiar with this information before you operate your vehicle. Good point. Yeah, it is a good idea to know where your transfer case is, to know the components of your four-wheel drive system. Maybe I'll do like video on that. On some four-wheel drive vehicles, the initial shift from two-wheel to four-wheel drive when the vehicle is moving can cause a momentary clunk or ratcheting sound. These sounds are normal and not cause for concern. Okay, my opinion on that. I have heard the ratcheting sounds come from the front end, where the hubs are. I've heard a little clunk here and there before. I tend to think you should try to shift the vehicle in a manner that you're not going to hear the ratcheting sound. Now, when I used to hear it is when I was pushing the limits, and not saying that I'm not following the manual, because the manual is saying that you can use electronic shift on the fly at speeds, at whatever speeds they say. I have to look at that and see if there's a speed limit there. But I think at the time I was in my 2016 truck, And the speed limit to shift at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was like they allow you to ESOF shift, electronically shift on the fly, up to 55 miles an hour. And I would try that maybe 50 miles an hour, and sometimes doing that at the higher speeds, I would get a ratcheting sound. So since then, I would get the ratcheting sound and it make me pull over and do all kinds of creep forward, creep back, and then it would complete its shift. Now, since having that happen a few times, I have refrained from shifting it into four-wheel drive at higher speeds, and I've had good success. I haven't heard any ratcheting noises since, and I would think, you know, it says here, oh, the ratcheting sounds, no cause for concern, but I would try to avoid that. I wouldn't want to have any gears ratcheting and meshing and grinding. So I think if you're hearing the ratcheting noise, maybe try to shift in a way that doesn't make any ratcheting noise. That would be like, don't be under power if you're going to shift, because the rear could be spinning slightly faster. You just kind of, if you're going to shift in a move, you kind of lay your foot off the gas, let all the wheels kind of synchronize and spin at the same speeds, and then shift it. And then once the shift is complete, you can get back on the gas. That's kind of how I do it, and that's kind of how the book says to do it. In four-wheel drive, the size of the spare tire relative to the remaining tires can have an effect on a four-wheel drive system. If there is a significant difference between the size of a spare and the remaining tires, the four-wheel drive function may be limited. See using four-wheel drive on page 212. Okay, how your vehicle differs from others, I'll try to cover that real quick. Sport utility vehicles and trucks can differ from some other vehicles in a few noticeable ways. Your vehicle may be higher to allow higher load carrying capacity and allow it to travel over rough terrain without getting hung up or damaged underbody components. So it's higher to allow for higher load carrying, probably regarding to the rake that you get on Super Duties, how the rear sometimes can sit higher. And Super Duties and 150s have a little rake, so I guess that makes sense. Shorter. The vehicle is shorter to give it the capability to approach inclines and drive over the crest of a hill without getting hung up or damaging the underbody. All other things held equal, a shorter wheelbase may make your vehicle. All other things held equally, a shorter wheelbase may make your vehicle quicker to respond to steering inputs than a vehicle that has a longer wheelbase. Okay, makes sense. Like this is overall Ford book, so maybe they're talking about like a little sport truck. Narrower to provide greater maneuverability in tight spaces, particularly in off-road use. As a result of the above dimensional differences, sport utility vehicles and trucks often have a higher center of gravity and a greater distance in the center of gravity between the loaded and unloaded conditions. These differences that make your vehicle so versatile also make it handle differently than ordinary passenger car. So that makes sense. Basically the truck can tip over easier than like a low vehicle. Kind of makes sense. So as far as the speed limit debate, there's talks of speed limits in here. Now this isn't necessarily saying that there is no speed limit, because maybe there is and I just don't see it in here. I've checked a couple different four-wheel drive spots in here, but no, I do not see the speed limit. So if you do see your speed limit that you can go in four-wheel drive, let me know, because I don't see it in my manuals for any of my trucks. And like I said, I was under the impression that there is no real speed limit. The speed limit in my eyes would be the limit that the truck can drive. Now this is new to me. I didn't even think you could drive above. I would think, my understanding was the speed limit in four-wheel drive low would have been like 55, and if you were to go 55 in four-wheel drive low, I think your engine would be revving real high. So I don't know. It talks about being in four-wheel drive low and going over 62. So according to this, you could be going over 62 in four-wheel drive low, and it doesn't say not to go over 62. It just says what would happen if you did go over 62, with your rear end locked, it says it will disengage the rear end, and then it will re-engage it at 50. So it's interesting. No signs of any speed limits regarding to using four-wheel drive high. There are speed limits in here for other situations like locking the rear, so not quite sure where these rules are coming from, but if you find these limits in the manuals, let me know. Now online, when you go and do a Google search on this, there's a bunch of websites and stuff that say you shouldn't go over 55 miles an hour, but none of them are official Ford websites. But maybe you shouldn't, but I do, and nothing's broken my trucks. I've gone 70 with four-wheel drive on, and nothing happened. I mean, not even a peep, not a noise, nothing. So anyway, guys, this is DS Trucks. My name is Sean. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one. Comment below. Over and out.